Hello, Speaker Site members. Today I'm interviewing Lillian Lincoln Lambert. Lillian is a Harvard MBA, so you're going to get a chance to see the world as a MBA does, allocating her time effectively, efficiently, thoughtfully, going where the value for her energy is best invested. Not only is she a Harvard MBA graduate, but she is the first African American female to receive a Harvard MBA. So naturally, it makes good sense with that kind of experience. Lillian speaks about overcoming what you might perceive, her audiences might perceive, as insurmountable obstacles. We often find those obstacles aren't insurmountable. Lillian is living proof of that and a great teacher on that topic. Here's Lillian Lincoln Lambert on Speaker Site. Today I'm on with Lillian Lambert on Speaker Site, and it's a great joy to be able to speak with you, Lillian, and to meet you on our interview. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on.
I'm glad to have you on. Thank you. I have a few quick questions that I know that the Speaker Site members want to have me ask, and so let's go. Well, first of all, tell us in the shortest possible way what you speak about and what your basic credentials are.
I speak about inspirational, motivational speaking, and I also have a business aspect. And I talk about the resilience and persistence and courage people need to use to overcome what they conceive as insurmountable obstacles, many of which I've faced myself, and I use stories from my own experience to do that. My background is I'm trained as a business owner. I have an MBA from Howard University and BA from Howard University, MBA from the Harvard Business School. And in 1969, I achieved what they say is a historical milestone as the first African-American woman to receive an MBA from Harvard.
Wow.
So I used that experience as what I went through. This was during what I call the tumultuous 1960s, in the middle of the civil rights movement, the women's rights movement, the college sit-ins, the Vietnam War. All of those things were going on during my first year at Harvard. So I dealt with some obstacles, having come from a very small town in Virginia, with Harvard never being on my radar screen. So here I am.
Wow, what a wonderful story, and congratulations for all your achievements. Somebody had to be first, and it was you.
It was me. I didn't know it at the time, and it's probably best I didn't. I probably wouldn't have gone.
Oh, really? They didn't recruit you with that in mind?
No. I was not recruited. I just applied.
Fabulous. Well, congratulations. Let me ask you my questions. How did you secure your most recent paid speaking opportunity?
My most recent one was through a speakers bureau. So I use a speakers bureau, plus I also do secure engagements on my own, but the most recent one was through a bureau.
What bureau do you use, if you don't mind saying?
Arnett and Associates in Richmond, Virginia.
They're called who? Sorry?
Arnett, Arnett, Arnett and Associates. They're
Wonderful.
Located in Richmond, Virginia.
Do you have any advice on how to work with, one piece of advice on how to work with a speakers bureau?
I'm new at this myself, so it's been an experience for me. But one thing I think you really have to stay in touch with, give them as much information as you can to market you, but follow up a lot, because sometimes I find they don't sometimes give me the level of feedback that I need on, particularly if I refer things to them and want to be sure they'll properly follow up on. So you really have to stay in touch with them on a regular basis.
So you refer opportunities that you're facing to them so that they can close the deal?
Sometimes, if it's something that I can't work on, I don't have as exclusive. They bring things my way, but I also solicit engagements on my own. And on some of those, if depending on what it is and my time, the time I have involved to work on it, it's whether or not I refer it to them, or if I have to pass it on to a staff member, or someone has to be paid to do it. So if the speaker bureau I feel can do a better job of negotiating this, so it's one they could work on, I may pass it to them.
And it's worth paying their fee.
Yes, if I don't have a big staff, so it's either I would have to do it personally or they do it. So I make that assessment based on what I'm involved in and whether it's more works better for me to let them handle it as opposed to me handling myself. Because it takes a lot of time to close some of these deals that I think most speakers know. It might seem really simple, but once you begin talking to them and getting into a negotiation and changing and reworking things, it can be a very involved process. So I make that assessment as to whether it's worth paying their fee or me using my time.
You do sound like a Harvard MBA.
Oh no!
I mean, you
Well,
do.
you got to think about making money.
You're delegating where you ought to delegate. You're doing what you do best and sticking to that. And that's really
That's
a profound lesson for the other members of Speaker Site. So thank you. Let me ask,
that's true.
when you market yourself, how do you market yourself?
Well, I've been using my website, which I try to keep up and fairly updated. I use social media, the Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter primarily. I don't use Twitter a lot. I really can't get into Twitter. I use LinkedIn pretty much and Facebook for promotion. A lot of my speaking engagement came as a result of my book. My memoir was published last January, The Road to Someplace Better from the Segregated South to Harvard Business School. And I promoted that largely on Facebook and email blasts, all my book signings. And I continue to do that. And I've gotten many of my speaking engagement as a result of social media and my website and some press releases. So I'm in the process now of preparing a marketing piece that I will target certain niche in the market that I will want to continue to speak with, and I'm getting involved. I'm doing some coaching also. So those are the two things I'm working on now.
That's great. I've heard this rule of thumb from a variety of speakers that with regards to speaking fees, you can work hard and get up to about $5,000 a speech, but to get over five, you have to write a book. You have to have a memoir or a how-to or some sort of factual help. Did you find that writing a book helped you to market yourself better as a speaker and also to charge higher fees?
Well, it helped to market myself better. Charging the higher fees, that probably the timing is really bad. When my book came out right in the midst of the, quote, economic crunch, everybody was cutting back on not only getting speakers, but the fees they were charging. And I found in some instances I had to negotiate lower fees to get speaking engagements that I wanted and ones that probably would have paid more earlier. But so having a book does get you a platform to get speaking engagement. And one of my friends told me, and I think this is a pretty good comment, a book is basically a $5 business card. See, a lot of people think they write a book, they're going to make a lot of money on the book. The book basically serves as a platform for you to get involved in other things, unless you're a big name or you want to write maybe a trashy book that everybody wants to buy. You can use it as a platform to get into venues that you may not be able to get into without the book.
I've heard of some people who don't charge a fee at all, but require the purchase of the book for everyone in the audience and therefore capture their compensation that way.
Yes, that does happen, and I've had a few of those, and I've also had situations where there was maybe a lower fee with them buying X number of books, so that gets you the sure sale. And some want you to just have the book sales. I limit the number of speaking engagements that I do that have no fee involved if I feel there's some other benefit in doing it, but that's not the typical way.
Right. So let me ask the question nobody likes, but everybody at Speaker Site wants me to ask. How much do you charge?
It varies. So I don't quote real figures. Depending on the type of organization, whether it's corporate, education, or a non-profit, and depending on whether it's local, out of state, or out of the country. So I have a range of fees depending on what kind of organization it is, and I may negotiate those based on whether there is some other benefit that I see in doing the speech. But the one thing, and maybe this is that I think people need to be aware of, if you do pro bono speeches, you need to be aware of how many of those you're doing. And what I do is determine how many of those I'll give during the course of the year, and I determine based on my interest in the organization that's requesting me and whether there's some other benefit that I think I could derive from it. But I try to do some giving back to organizations through speaking.
Well, you have dodged my question beautifully, and so I'm going to go back to it. What sort of, if you can, what sort of range do you charge? Maybe the highest cost for something that doesn't, not including travel time.
Oh, somewhere between 3 and 15.
Great. Okay, that's a range. I understand. 3,000 to 15,000 is what I'm hearing.
Right.
So how many paid gigs do you imagine you have over the course of a year?
Oh, I really don't want to speak more than, say, a couple times a month. I'm semi-retired. I tried to retire, but it didn't agree with me. So I don't want to work every day and be speaking a lot, traveling. So I want to limit my travel to at least maybe twice a month, 2 or 3 times a month.
So,
and do more coaching and consulting work.
Well, okay, so I'm not going to try to calculate what your annual revenue stream is. You don't want me to do that anyway. But
no.
But it sounds like it's a reasonable revenue stream. It's something that, and the reason I ask this is because there are a lot of people on speaker sites saying to themselves, "Can I earn a living doing this? Is this worth doing, or is it just a hobby?" It sounds like it's a wonderful expression of your creativity and experience and insight, and it also is a fair chunk of compensation.
Oh, yes. I think it's a great career and great opportunities. The reason I am doing not as much as most people may be doing is because I was an entrepreneur for a number of years, sold my company and tried to retire, but found I wanted to be involved in doing something. And this is a great way that I can control the amount of time that I'm involved and still have a decent income. And if I want to speak more, I can increase that. But for someone who's doing this as a full-time job and wanting to speak or be involved in doing something every day of the month, then they put more time into it and they will probably accept more engagements than I might accept.
Wonderful. Sounds great. So let me ask this question. What's the biggest mistake you've made along the way in your speaking business? A mistake that others might be able to learn from?
I guess the biggest one that I think I made in starting out was when I was so excited about people wanting me to speak that I forgot to really charge them. When they started asking me to speak for free, I was doing more freebies than I realized I was doing. And all of a sudden I realized I've spoken X number of times, but I don't have a lot of money to show for it. So I think you have to think about that early in developing your speaking career, or if it's later in developing it, reassess what you're doing and you decide up front how many speaking engagements you want to do a year or how much money you want to give up for speaking in order to make contributions to whatever organizational community you want to do that for. See, I try to make sure that the speaking engagements I do are for some worthy cause, not just for someone who says, I just can't afford to pay you. If it's an organization that's doing what I consider a community service that I am either involved in or interested in, I may consider doing the speaking engagements for pro bono.
Great.
So I think it's one of the biggest ones I've made. And I guess the other thing is a lot of speakers may think they are well prepared for speaking, but you have to be well aware of how you're perceived by your audience. Even now, I still tape my speeches before I give them. I practice. I see myself in the mirror, I video. And I think that's a good way to get an idea of how you come across to your audience.
Are your speeches fully written down, or do you work from bullet points?
Both. Depending on the topic and the group, I may write the speech completely and refer to it, or I may use bullet points and speak from that. If it's about my life and my story, I pretty much know that, and I don't have to write word for word, but I usually follow some kind of outline, a bullet point, make sure that I am that the speech is coherent and I'm following a logical pattern.
I heard the actor Michael Caine once in an interview talk about how he really doesn't like to practice and learn his lines. He likes to act. So he figures he's getting paid to learn his lines. And when they knock on his door and say it's time for your scene, he goes out, takes a break, and his break is when he acts. So he gets paid to learn lines. And like you, I mean, you get paid to look in the mirror and practice. You go out and you speak for free because that's the fun part. And I think that
Right.
we just have to sort of have a work ethic that you clearly have. Let me ask you to do a couple things in closing. One is to simply say, my name is Lillian Lambert, and I speak because.
My name is Lillian Lambert, and I speak because, first of all, I enjoy speaking, and I think I have a message to give to people, particularly those who feel they have insurmountable obstacles or people who feel they have little or no business acumen and want to start a business.
Great. Let me also ask you to finish this sentence. My name is Lillian Lambert, and I love SpeakerSite because.
My name is Lillian Lambert, and I love SpeakerSite because it gives me exposure to other people in similar lines of work that I am, and I can contribute to them, and I can learn from them and meet some very interesting people.
Wonderful. Thank you. Was there anything I should have asked that you wish I'd asked?
No, I think you covered everything.
Great. I'm so glad to meet you.